Hi there, it's me, Jordan Van Haslo. Welcome to Jordan Van Haslo and Friends live on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Let's get on with the show.
Keep your radio dial right here. You're locked into the hottest news station on the planet. Hot 702.5 in FM sound. Blazing today's hip-hop, R&B, and pop music. Keeping your radio on fire. Bringing you the hottest, realest, riskiest talk shows live 24/7 on hot7025fm.com.
Tune in now on hot7025fm.com.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Cheryl Underwood, and you're tuned into the hottest news station on the planet, Hot 702.5.
Hi. Hey. What's up?
All your favorite artists.
Check it out. Say my name. DJ Khaled. This is Mila J. Bruno Mars.
On hot7025fm.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another week of Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and Friends right here on Hot 702.5 FM. Today, we have a very, very special show. Last week, the world lost an icon. And it's so funny to say that word, right? Because so many people use that word so freely. But this woman was an icon whose talent and grit and creativity and just stick-with-itness inspired millions and millions and millions of people across generations, across genres, across artistic mediums. And that woman was Tina Turner. So today we're gonna actually have an extended show. For 2 hours, we're gonna celebrate this wonderful legend. I have some new friends and I have some old friends here to discuss exactly what she meant to them and how they've been celebrating her in their own way. A little later today, we're going to talk to the wonderful music critic and journalist and biographer, Craig Seymour. If you had a subscription to Vibe magazine, you've read many of his cover stories, and you also probably read his biography on Luther Vandross. A little later today, friend to the show, who was on one of our first shows, legendary New York drag queen, is going to come by and talk about Tina and her run-ins with Tina, Her Royal Highness Princess Diandra. But right now, I am so very excited to meet a brand new friend. She is a local person from Vegas. She is an international star. She is a singer. And you all probably know her as an original member of En Vogue. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our new friend, Maxine Jones.
So much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. You've been on my list of people that I've wanted to speak to for a very long time. We started this show back in 2020, right before the pandemic, and you've actually been on my list. So while I'm glad you're here, I hate that it's the death of Tina Turner that precipitated it.
Yeah, me too. But I'm glad to finally meet you and talk to you.
Indeed. So let's talk, because as coincidence would have it, you just did a show that was a tribute to Tina Turner right here in Vegas at the Fremont Street Country Club, yeah?
Yes, I sure did. Yeah, it was my way. That was actually, I think it was April
8th.
Around the 8th. Okay, yeah. I couldn't think of it. I was going to say the 15th or something. But I know it was a few months ago. But yeah, you know, she's just my idol. You know, I've always loved her. I always look to her for everything, you know, vocals, stretching my voice and just being more vocally. I think about Tina and her range. When I think about reinventing myself, I think about Tina. And, you know, I just wanted to pay homage to her and tribute to her because she's just phenomenal. and then diving into all the material. I had to come up, like you said, she's so multifaceted. I had to come up with one area I could focus on and grasp, and that was vocally. I couldn't do the dance moves and, just her energy and everything. it was just a lot. It was huge, humongous. And, after taking everything on, I just thought, oh my God, are you crazy? Who do you think you are that you could cover this phenomenal woman, So it was a little bit stressful getting to that show day just because of that,
Yeah.
But I made it through. Thank God.
You made it through. So how did the idea come up? So shortly before, because I've done I did a Nat King Cole tribute show shortly before we started this show, and I came to Las Vegas. I did it in New York, and it was a feat because, like you said, where do you start? So I started reading. I read 2 biographies, and I was like, what pieces of his story resonate with me? And then I listened to so much music, and it's like, okay, of course you have to have the chestnuts that everyone wants to hear.
Exactly.
But also, what are those songs that are like B-sides or that whoa, this is an amazing song that I think that people should know about. And it felt like a gargantuan task. How did this start for you?
Well, just like you said, coming up with those songs that everybody loves and needed to hear, like Simply the Best and Proud Mary and Nutbush. I've been following her for probably since I was a kid. And there was an obscure album that I'm just really surprised that it didn't do. I just didn't hear about it more. And that was, I think it was called 24/7. For some reason, I keep thinking of that. But there was a song, a bunch of songs on there, but one of the ones I covered.
That was in 99, 2000, somewhere around there. Yes, I remember that.
And that was such a phenomenal album.
When the Heartache Was Over, I think.
It was one of those. And I covered Falling. That was just one of my all-time favorites of hers. And I was so glad to just get to do it in the show, although, most of the audience had never heard it. So, I didn't mean to take you. I didn't mean it. But I started, you mentioned that album, and I started thinking about it. Yes, that was a great album, the whole entire album. To me, it should have been huge, I was just so surprised that so many of the singles, maybe they took off in Europe, but I felt like we should have been hearing them on our stations here a lot more. That was that. And I decided to do it because I love her so much. When I was with the group En Vogue, one of the things we did. I forget the year, but for the Soul Train, it was maybe one of the award shows for Soul Train. We decided to pay tribute to some of the people that influenced us, and I hands down, I picked Tina for sure, and I got to cover Tina and Shaka, and I got to cover both Tina and Shaka, that video had been circulating online, and I had decided to cover a couple of her songs. Hero was one. I wasn't thinking of Proud Mary because I had never done the full song of Proud Mary because that's such a huge song in my book.
It is. It's like a one-woman show in itself.
It really is in itself.
It's like, good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. From start to finish. Oh, my God. Wow. And so, that video had been circulating. Just a little excerpt that I did for the tribute with En Vogue had been circulating online, and so it was that song, and I had started covering Hero, and a couple of people heard it. Mainly the owners over at Fremont said, we love Tina. It's a rock and roll club. And she was like, well, why don't you, do a tribute to Tina. Why don't you do a Tina show, you know? And I thought, oh my God, this is like the opportunity of a lifetime to just delve into that music and get a chance to sing that stuff, you know? And I said yes right away. Again, you know, after I had, you know, really, you know, took a deep dive into that music.
Yeah.
You know, all the songs are out of 10, you know, and so I had to really, I wanted to quit. Like the first month of going, I was like, you can't do this. How?
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like, was it intimidating? Because, because, like, if I think like my experience with Nat King Cole, like even though he was very singular, most of his songs are standards. We've heard a lot of different versions of them. We kind of know them by heart. Whereas all of her songs are her songs, and she sounds like her, and she moves like her. Like, were you ready to like?
Well, you know, and actually, you know, it's so funny. Like, there's a lot of her songs. A lot of her songs are covers that people think are hers because she made them her own. Like Disco Inferno. Like she covered
Proud
Al
Mary.
Green's Proud Mary is a remake. You know.
We sing Let's Stay Together.
Let's Stay Together. You know, and
yeah.
And so, I mean, that it was just difficult. You know, I had to practice having the stamina to do an hour and a half show and have a voice at the very end to get to Proud Mary and be able to rock that song because that was the most important song to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, because, you know, time was going by, the date was coming up really close, and even though I wanted to quit, I thought the only thing I can do is just work out vocally every single day.
Yeah.
And just to be able to, you know, have a voice to somewhat sing those songs, you know. So, and that's what I focused on. It's just, oof.
So what was the rehearsal process like? So I wasn't in town on the 8th, but I did get a chance to see some of the footage of it. And it's like, this was a show. There were dancers.
Yes.
There's a full band. Like, it wasn't just like, ladies and gentlemen, here's my cabaret on, you know, what Tina Turner means to me.
Well, I had to get into the choreography and the dance moves because that was a huge part of Tina's moving, you know, that's while singing, you know, at a 10, you know, so I had to have that in the show. And so rehearsing for that, you know, I had to run while singing, you know, as far as getting myself in shape for that, really, you know, and it was a workout. It was physically and mentally too was a workout, you know, trying to have the confidence to say, girl, woo. You better do this. You better get it together, lady.
I love it. So they came to you with the idea of like, let's do a show. So as far as just the overall concept of the show and the choreography and what it all was going to look like, did you have collaborators on it, or
I hired
I
definitely had a artistic director to come in and just lay the whole foundation. I came up with the songs I felt were important to cover, and you know, and between the musical director and the artistic director, a really wonderful lady by the name of Lena. Why do I want to say Perel? Oh my gosh. But Lena's fabulous. She's a fabulous choreographer. She also worked on the production with the Pussycat Dolls when they did, oh my gosh, Moulin Rouge. Did they do that? Yeah. But she was a big part of that, the music video and all of that with the original members. And she's just a choreographer. She also worked with En Vogue back in the day. And I'm blessed that she lives right here in Vegas. And so she came on, and took on the the artistic direction of the show and just worked it out and found those fabulous dancers.
Isn't that one of the great Isn't it one of the great things about living in Vegas, though? It's
Yes.
kind of like living in a barn. It's like, hey, Maxine, call up these 3 people. Let's go put on a show.
Yes. Yes, there are a lot
like
of
one of those
amazing
old
people
Judean.
here. Oh, yeah, so true. So many amazing people here, so much talent. And then, of course, it's kind of like the performing space, on the planet when it comes to shows and so
It's like living perpetually in one of those old Mickey and Judy movies,
Yeah,
It's like, let's just start
it really
tap
is.
dancing.
Exactly. There's always something going on, and a place to be, and a place to do it, and a place to see it. Yes.
Totally. How long have you been in Vegas?
Wonderful. It's only been 3 years now. Yeah.
Okay.
But I came here right during the pandemic, like right before the pandemic happened, like a month or so before everything started to shut down.
Oh my goodness. So you literally could have been my first guest.
Yeah.
We started like a couple
could've-
of weeks before
I can't
pandemic.
believe you guys just started. This is really wonderful.
What brought you to Vegas? Like, what made you say, hey, okay, you know what? We're moving to Nevada IE.
My business partner had moved here from Atlanta like maybe 3 or 4 years before. And he kept saying, Max, you need to come to Vegas. I'm in Vegas now. This is really a hot spot. You need to come here. We could probably find you some shows here. You could really make things happen here. And I kind of like brushed it off. Came from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm kind of that's kind of where En Vogue and I got my musical start right there in the Bay Area. So I feel like I know everybody and I'm very comfortable there.
Yeah.
And then I came here and it was everything that he said, and I've just been here. I thought this makes a lot of sense for me to be here and come and set up here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then he and we have a recording studio, content. We call it a content studio, about 2,000 square feet of studio space here in Vegas, where we record. We have a little sound stage so I can rehearse. We have an LED wall. We can create content. Like I said, it was right before the pandemic. So us setting that up right then was just perfect because I just we thought everybody was going to be indoors forever. Shut down and in lockdown for ever, and so we kind of set up a space where we could just create content and do shows if I needed to right there, pay-per-view or live streaming, anything right there. And so we still have that space, as well.
Yeah.
And I've been here ever since. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So going back to the Tina Turner show, put in a lot of work. It was one night only.
It was one night only.
Is it something that you think you're gonna either develop into something even bigger or do again or maybe tour with? Because I always think, I'm sorry,
No,
go for it.
you go ahead. No.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, because I always think like you put in so much time for the rehearsal and you put in so much, you learn so many lyrics, you learn so many dance steps, you learn so many, and then you do it. And it's over.
Yeah, exactly. All that work, 3 months of prep. I mean, it's always like that for every show, though. It's like all this prep and all the stress for a half hour or for, 45 minutes, an hour or so. Yes. But yes, definitely.
Yeah.
That was the whole plan, was to make it an ongoing thing. And that was the reason why we went all out with the production, because we wanted to be able to sell that show. And because of that show, we've gotten a lot of interest. And definitely an opportunities to not take it on the road, but be a regular here in Vegas doing that show. I haven't thought about taking it on the road. I always thought I wanted to be holed up right here in Vegas because I just love that. I love it. Touring is hard, You
like being able to go home at night, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I want to sleep in my bed.
Drop off my dry cleanings.
Yes.
Put my dry cleaning. Go to work. and go
Yes.
home and watch television.
Exactly. Or sew or do some of the all the other things I do. Exactly. Yes, that was my plan. So, but we've actually been asked to. People have been sending me notifications to please come to their area with this show. So I'm not close to the idea of taking it on the road if ever that opportunity happens. But right now we are definitely gearing up and tweaking the show to be here locally and on a regular basis. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. We're not to be, morbid, but like the like her passing away and like the last week, have you found that increasing any chatter in terms of like people talking about the show or thinking about your show or, oh, maybe we'd love to, book the show?
Yeah, I would say yes, for sure. Although the chatter kind of was happening after this first show, some of the chatter that had been going on is just now coming even more to the forefront because of Tina's passing. So yes, I would say yes.
Do you think as you continue to tweak the show and workshop the show and get it to where you want it to be, how do you is her passing going to affect the show, like affect maybe some of the songs you choose to pull or take, or affect how you might present, some things?
Well, I can just already feel that my heart is going to be a little heavier covering some of that stuff. Just thinking about that, I feel like those songs mean more to me in a way, I have a show here in Vegas on Juneteenth, on the 19th of June, and I'm gonna take half of my show, and cover Tina's stuff, and just going through the rehearsals for that, the songs, they just touch me more,
Yeah.
So I know that I'm gonna definitely feel something different singing that material. So
Absolutely.
I know that's it's gonna affect the show. I would think so.
What's happening on Juneteenth? Where are you going to be?
I'm gonna be here in Vegas. There's a show for another radio station. I don't know if I can mention that. Is that okay?
There are no other radio stations.
There are no others, right? So I'll just leave it like that. There's a local show here in Vegas with another station.
Wonderful. So you're going to do half of the Tina stuff, and then are you doing your solo stuff? Do you still do, like in your solo shows, do you do a lot of the En Vogue stuff, or do you?
Yeah, I still.
Or are you like a Madonna where you're just like grab your guitar and say no? I do new music.
Well, people want to hear. They do want to hear that En Vogue stuff too. So I'm always geared up to make sure I cover the key En Vogue songs as well. I'm going to spend a half an hour on Tina and half an hour covering En Vogue. So yeah.
But I always wonder, like, how, artists with a huge catalog of hits that they may or may not love to still handle it. Just last week, I was in New York and I went and I saw Tom Jones at the Beacon. And it was so funny because, like, his, second and third song was, like, it's not unusual
to be
What's New Pussycat?
And What's New Pussycat? I love those songs.
But he did it in such a way of like, okay, let's get these damn songs out of the way so I can sing what I really want to be singing.
I bet. Wow.
You didn't save them for the end or anything. So I'm always curious as to how folks choose to present their work, particularly when they have like a really large legacy catalog that people are like, I need to hear that song because I remember it so well,
Well, I cover them all. I go full out on them. I don't do a medley or anything like that. Yeah.
Well, is it really cool, to be able to sing parts that you wish there were your parts back in the day, and you're like, now I get to finally sing it the way that I want to sing it.
That's the best part. That's the best part. It's like, oh my God, I love this song, and now the part that I really love, I get to sing it. Yes.
I only saw you all once many, many years ago. I grew up in Chicago, and I saw you all at the United Center when you were touring with Luther Vandross. And I just remember it being such a wonderful show. But I also remember, like, there seemed to be a lot of, like, kerfluffle around that whole...
I was going to say, you said it was a really good show. That's why I was like, oh, good. I'm glad you thought it was a really good show.
What are your memories of that time and of that experience?
Well, first off, I'm a huge Luther fan. I always have been, even when we're going through that little situation, kerfluffle. That was the thing, is like, but I really love this guy, you know. But that was the thing. It was kind of a little mess. I think we just kind of started off and got off on the wrong foot. That's how everything started. I think there were just misunderstandings, and that didn't get resolved in time for us to do that show and do it successfully. And so we had to leave unceremoniously.
Yeah.
But
do you think it was like kind of an insecurity thing, like in terms of like, oh, because you guys were hot, and it's also like as a male singer, you know, competing with the females, like it's just a whole different thing. And I only asked that. So around the time I started this show, I was headlining at the Tuscany in Vegas. Oh, wow. And my singing partner and I, we had opening acts come in. And I remember there was this group who shall not be named. They were so good that I'm kind of standing in the back of the theater watching this and watching the audience's reaction. And I'm like, yeah, we can't book them ever again. This is not going to work. And so I wonder, do you think that maybe some of that it was at play in that time?
No, you know, I don't think so. I mean, to me, we were certainly not on the level of Luther. Luther, to me, was legend well before us, you know. So I know, you know, when we finally got a chance to sit with Luther and ask him, you know, like, what was the issue? You know, why? And he said to us that he said, I remember now. He said, we did a lot of shows with Arsenio, a lot of appearances on the Arsenio Hall show. And there was this one time he asked us to appear with him on Arsenio to like pay tribute to Arsenio. It was his birthday. It was Arsenio's birthday. And he wanted to do something special for Arsenio's birthday. And I remember for us at the time when Luther asked us to do that, so much was going on. I mean, we were kind of like at the peak of our career. We were getting offers and people coming at us from every direction and wanting something. And every performance, everything that we did for us, we're very rehearsed. None of it is like spontaneous.
Improvised.
Yeah. No, we're a rehearsed group, period, you know. And so for us, that meant when he asked us to do it, it meant getting into more rehearsals and, you know, and just taking on another big thing, you know. And so we kind of had to say, we were booked, we were full. We kind of had to say no. But then Arsenio, we still wanted to somehow do something for Arsenio's birthday. And Arsenio was having us on too, and it wasn't just singing, you know, something that we had rehearsed, a song from our catalog or whatever that current single was. And so we decided to just present him with a cake and sing regular happy birthday or something like that. And it was while Luther was on stage as well. And that was spontaneous, actually. It was something that wasn't rehearsed, and it was spontaneous.
Like, see?
See, you know, we could do it, you know. We didn't think we could do it. But Luther was offended. He was offended that we had come on and done that and didn't come on and do something with him
Oh, okay. And I could see how that might.
I could see that
especially
too.
Not knowing what the background of like that could feel like a
Exactly.
slight.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he felt that way. Well, he told us that's exactly what
Well,
it
so
was. That
did this happen while you guys were on tour, or like?
No, this was before we had gone on tour with him, but he still asked us to come on the road.
He asked you
with
to
him.
come on the road to
He
be
invited us
crusty.
to his house. Yeah, he invited us to his house for dinner. It's true. It's so true.
Some people are vengeful, man. It's like, okay,
guess
I
so,
gotta
you
play the
know?
long game.
Yes, And then, it was like right before we went on the road, it was time to go on the road. We thought everything was cool. I mean, he had invited us to his house. We ate with him. It was all cool. We were going out on the road with Luther Vandross. And then like 2 weeks before it was time to go, his people came and saw our costumes and said, you can't wear black, white, red, blue, no sparkles, no paillettes, nothing sparkles.
So no color. It's like,
I hate to say this, but it's true. That's what he
oh
said.
my goodness.
And we didn't
So
think
it's like,
anything
okay,
of that.
It's a nudie show. Like, there's like you can't wear any colors.
You can't wear
or any
black, white,
clothes.
blue, red, and nothing that sparkles, and so we didn't think we thought, oh, wow, okay.
Was there any background to that? Like, well, we can't do this because of blah, 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 blah.
No,
he
said no because that's all those colors his girls were wearing. He and his girls were wearing. That's what he said. And he said technically he's a girl group too. That's what he told us. So, I mean, and we could see that.
Don't you hate a bitchy queen? Like, it's just like, oh.
I can't believe I'm revealing all of this.
So you can't wear any color under the rainbow. You can't wear sparkles.
Nothing that
You
sparkles. And I swear we were like really trying to figure it out. Like, oh, okay, that all makes sense. We can't do any of those
But like
things.
even with that, you can't even wear a nun's habit. Like literally, like black, white.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, so that happened. So you couldn't wear any colors. So
couldn't
you're like,
wear
okay,
any
we're gonna
colors
try
and
to
no
figure this out.
sparkles. Yes, and we tried, and we had costumes made up, but they were all those colors, and of course they sparkled, so we had to like scratch all of that stuff like 2 weeks before it was time to get on the road. And then the other thing that happened was
I'm just laughing. Yeah, come with me on on an arena tour, but don't wear anything that'll make people look at you.
But that's not even it. He told us. Now do you remember those shows were in the round?
Oh, right.
They were in the round. So he told us. Now his band is in the pit. When his band isn't in the pit, our band should have been able to be in the pit. But he told us we couldn't use the pit. So how could we perform in the round with our band on stage? So I'm sure when you saw a circle, you saw the back of the stage, all the cords, everything. I know it's funny. It was awful though. It was like, oh my God. We tried everything to make it work with our band on stage with no colors, nothing sparkled, it was a nightmare. And all of this we found out right before it was time to go on stage, right before it was time to get on the road with him. So we were literally every single day of that tour.
In it.
Huh? Say that again?
I said you were in it. So like there was,
yeah,
you were in it. I said you were in it. Like you couldn't.
We had to figure it out as we were going along. And literally every day of the tour, every venue, we would get into the venue and try to figure out our show right there on the road. Like, how can we make the band, us work with this round? What are we going to wear? I mean, we were shopping, like trying to find stuff to wear every single day of that tour. It was a mess. And then he came up with these rules as we were going along, like we can't eat with his band during the it was a lot of stuff. We can't eat with his band. During the the lunch area, the lunchtime. There's every day that you're working, there's a time when they hire like a whole crew of people to come in and cook for everybody, so that the crew, the bands, everybody eats. But we couldn't eat with his band, so that meant them having to figure out someplace else to set our food up somewhere. And some of the times it was like in the basement in these weird places. They had to bring and carry food down so that our crew and band could eat. So there was that. And then I think straw that broke the camel's back was he told us, I think the very last time we performed with him, he told us, and this was a huge arena, he told us that we could not pass his dressing room to get to the stage. And the stage was like really close. The stage door was really close. His dressing room was in between. He told us he would have us arrested if we went past his dressing room. And he literally called the cops on us.
Did he really?
He called the cops. The cops showed up and said, technically, it's his show. This was his tour, and he was the headliner, so he could make those kind of rules. And that if we crossed past his dressing room, if he said we couldn't, then we can't. And if we passed, they had set up these golf courses to literally take us all around the arena just to get right there to the doggone stage door.
I don't know if I'm disgusted or excited. It's so petty, and it's such a wonderful waste of money. It's just like yes.
Well, what? It's so funny. While it was happening, I felt like that. I was like, yes. Can you imagine him not letting us pass his dressing room? This is awesome.
Like old school crustiness, because you really can't get away. People can't get away with that kind of things now anymore. Like if you were modern media. That's what I'm saying. If this happened now, and he were whoever, and you were a young girl group, immediately the TikTok would come out. You know what I'm saying? Immediately
showing all
the
the
Twitter
drama.
Yeah, totally. And he'd, get carted away like, Ellen DeGeneres, like that's amazing. So like, when did it actually end? So like
that was the last day. That day when
that was the last day, and then
yes, and it was over. We did not finish the rest of the tour. It was over when they called the cops, and we decided we were going to be defiant and go. So were you guys dressing room?
That's what I was wondering. Like you guys were like, screw this, man. We're gonna go.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. We dare you to have. Can you imagine going to jail for crossing his dress? We were like, I dare you.
That's like so amazing. But again, like now that would totally be a scene, because then all of a sudden you pull out your cell phones, you call TMZ, like everyone would be filming this whole kerfluffle. Yes. It's like, why is Luther calling the police on these women? Because like that would have been oh wow. It was technology breeds opportunities.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well,
so what was that like to get the call the next day to say, yeah, the tickets are on your nightstand?
Yeah, exactly. We knew it. We knew that there was no way we could go on after that. So yeah. I mean,
like, did it feel like a defeat? Like, did it feel, were you indifferent? Were you like angry at him? Were you like embarrassed?
No.
Like, oh my God, we got like, what did it feel like?
It was like, I personally felt like, woo, I think we all felt like we needed to get off that tour because it was very difficult. And our show, I felt like our show was lousy. Our show was just totally suffering because of all those rules he had, and all those, what do you call it, obstructions he had put in the way of us putting on a great show. So we were glad to get off that tour. It was great that it was over and we didn't have to finish, because there was the second leg of that tour was in Europe. So,
oh goodness,
yeah, we couldn't have.
He'd be throwing sauerkraut at you.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been awful. Yeah,
Would you
so.
say, I don't know much about your life, like just like, pre En Vogue, pre, you becoming a public figure, but are you and have you done exactly what you wanted to do? Or when you were young, like what did you see yourself becoming as an artist or music, or, like what was your goal back then?
Well, I started singing as a little girl in Paterson, New Jersey, and it wasn't until after seeing Tina and Shaka and all my idols really out there doing it, I never thought that I could do it. I just thought I had this talent to do a little singing thing, and that was it. I was really happy with that. And then I moved to California as a teenager, and I was a hair braider, honestly, and I thought I would be doing that the rest of my life because
Okay. Well, if you want to, I can swing by after the show.
You got some clients for me?
Yeah, I got some new growth. So
hey, holler.
I'm sorry, I could.
No, it's okay. No, and and as when I was in high school, I was braiding. I say professionally because I had a 6-month waiting list. I had corporate women just flying from all around the world, mainly in the States, all over the States, coming for me to do their hair. And so I thought that that's what I would be doing for the rest of my life. I mean, I was making good money, and then I had friends who were like, "Do you think that's what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life? Come on, girl, get your butt in school, And so after high school, I decided to take some courses at the junior college, and the only thing I could think of that I wanted to do and learn to do more of was music, And so I just took everything music. I started singing in the college choirs. I sang in choirs in high school too, and so it was just natural for me. I knew how to blend, and that was, to me, was satisfying. Being in a choir and singing with a group of people.
Because it's a nice feeling, right? Especially when you hit those specific chords and like it's
and
8 different parts and it just is soaring.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I love that feeling. And at the time, there's the musical director at Merritt College in Oakland. She was always like nagging at me to sing solo stuff, and I was always so self-conscious and shy. But she would give me material and ask me to cover it, and then just push me to do it more and more and more. And then, a couple of the choir was huge, and so a couple of the members of the choir had their own bands around in the Bay Area. And San Francisco Bay Area, musically at that time, was just phenomenal. I mean, while I was out there and they were out there, and we all were out there, the Tonys was there, MC Hammer, Rosie Gaines, Lenny Williams, all these great people were out there locally on the scene, and so many people you haven't heard of that are so phenomenal. So I sang background for a lot of these people, and I would go to auditions and was terrible because I was always so self-conscious and shy. But over time, by the time the En Vogue auditions came up, I had been singing background and singing in the choir and doing so much musical stuff that I felt confident going into those auditions and making it. Yeah. So that's how that
when you made it, was there like a sense of, I mean, I don't know how it was presented to you, but was there like a sense of like, oh yeah, I'm about to hit the big time? Or was it just like, okay, here's a new gig, here's a new opportunity, let's see what happens with this?
Well, the producers, Denzel Foster and Thomas McElroy, they were famous already. I mean, they were Club Nouveau before they were producers on their own. And so, they were hot in the area. And so when they were holding these auditions, I had heard about the auditions like months before I actually showed up. And I was you had to be recommended to go there. You couldn't just show up. And so finally I got this person who, I worked in a hair salon. And so a lot of musicians and people would come through the salon, and I got someone who had a connection to recommend me to the audition. So that's how I finally was able to get to that audition. So I was, when we were, the four of us actually were there the same day. There were 5 members there, and the 4 of us were there. And it felt good being there. I felt like I could do this, I could hang with these girls, and I think it just helped having all that choir experience, because I knew how to blend, and
listen.
And listen, basically listen and hear and blend and all of that goes along with being in a group. I was really prepared for that. And so when, the thing was, though, the group was only supposed to be 3 members. So I knew that out of the 5 of us, 2 people were not going to make this group. But, they did this final thing where they had us all, besides singing with each person, singing together and them figuring out the blend and all of that, they made each of us sing one of the songs that were going to be featured on the 2 producers, Denzel Foster and Thomas McElroy's album. They wanted this particular song to feature this group, this new group they were presenting. This was an album presenting really their productions with all these artists. And so they wanted each of us to sing that particular song solo, and that was Waiting on You. That eventually made our album. That was the actual audition. Dawn winded up being her version of it. Winded up being the featured, the production of the song. But it was a toss-up between her and I. So I felt good that I felt good that I had a good chance of being a member of this group. So.
Yeah. Is that a thing, like when you're in like a girl group like that, like often, like if you're like in a band, it's like, I'm the lead singer, you're the lead guitarist, you're the bassist, everyone has their own place and it's like known. Is that like when you're in a girl group, is that like something that like you guys kind of like duke out over, like, no, but I love that song. Give me my song. It's going to be my song. You get away from my song. Like.
No, first of all, we were told when we going in that there may just be one lead singer. So get ready for that. Whoever you think you are, you might be just being background in this group if you make it, So there was that. We were prepared I was prepared for that, And then when it came down, once we made the group and it came down to these songs themselves, I think the cool thing was Denzel Foster, the producer. We really trusted him when it came to our sound. He's the one that worked with us, each of us vocally, and he knew where every voice fit. So he knew like, Max, you should be on this part, and this song I want you to cover, and Dawn, this is you and your part, and Cindy, you're going to be up here on this part, and at first I was a little bit disappointed after making the group that I had to sing the bottom, because I'm a soprano, we're all sopranos, but I had to be the alto person, so and I had never sang alto before. I was always in those choirs singing soprano, and
totally. But you can hear you did all that choir work, so you can hear all of those funky, counter melodies. So that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I started to really appreciate them once I was on the bottom, because before that, I felt like all the pretty and lyrical stuff was always at the top, and I just loved being a soprano. But I learned to see all the beauty that's in all those other tones as well, and I started to really embrace.
That adds the color. It adds all the color to it, and all
absolutely
with that thing that makes you feel good. It's all of that stuff that's added on top of the melody.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And now I love it.
Was your like in terms of En Vogue and your success, was it like kind of a slow climb, or did you guys like kind of release a single and it just like took off and all of a sudden you guys were on a roller coaster?
And it was like that. The very first song, as soon as the song came out, Hold On, it was a hit going out. Everybody loved it immediately, and I feel like the entire time we were catching up with everything. It was just all moving so extremely fast. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
If you had the opportunity to do it over again, and if you could control things, would you have preferred it to have been a more like a slower climb that you could, as you kind of got, oh, a little, we're big regionally, get a feel of that. Oh, now we're big, and it's like which would you prefer? I mean, not that you can change the past, but
Right. Well, I think it was great. Like, I mean, I think that's how it was the best case scenario, with it all moving so fast. I just wish we had been in the studio more and done a lot more music over that period of time. Because to me, that was my favorite part, was the creative part of it, being in that studio, as well as being on stage and performing it. But being in a studio, coming up with that music, writing and all that stuff was like, oh, I looked forward to all of that. Yeah. I wanted to do more and more and more. And plus, having a little piece of a bunch of songs is nice, but I just wanted to do more. I wanted to experience more of the music. Definitely. Yeah.
No, I understand that.
And that's one good thing about being solo right now. Like you said, I get to sing now. I get to sing all of those songs, all those parts that I love. Yes. So that's a thing, I'm telling you.
Yeah. I love that. So so the Tina Turner show aside, you're working on that. Do you have any other interesting things or projects planned, or are you touring at all? Do you have anything else planned for the rest of the year going into next?
Mainly recording, coming up with new music. That's writing and coming up with new music. That's my goal. And hopefully, I'm not with the labels, so it's kind of difficult to get traction with singles and songs when you don't have a big machine behind you putting it out there in a big way.
Yeah.
And so the growth is slow when it comes to that music and putting things out there. But I'm happy with that, just being able to work and record. I'm loving having my own studio so I can get in the studio and sing new stuff all the time if I want to, I'm
That has to be really awesome, because I'm sure, like, I know I've thought that in my time, like sometimes like I'll like wake up and there'll be something caught in my throat and it's like, this is a really interesting sound. If only I had like a studio that I could just run in and lay something down and see how this sounds. So it has to be really fun to be able to just like do your thing whenever you want. What's your process? What's your creative process? Like, do you songwrite every day, or do you have a pattern? How do you go about creating?
Well, I work with a couple of different producers who mainly they send me material, like tracks usually, and they'll say, Max, what do you think of this? And I'll get in the studio, I'll play it, get in the studio, and then I'll just start humming, melody ideas over it. And then I'll, get like a main hook part of it and try and come up with some lyrics, and start from there and send it back to the producer and see what they think. And then they'll do their tweaking. And, we go back and forth until we feel like it's right. And then, I think that's kind of a common process that people do. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Is there anything you haven't done? You've toured arenas, you've had hit records, you've been fired by crusty divas, Is there any type of thing that you've always wanted to do that you never had the opportunity to do? And it doesn't have to be musically, but just as far as entertainment, like other mediums, like is there anything that you've always said like, oh, I wish I had done that, or I wish I could have or I'd love the opportunity to do that?
Well, I think this Tina show was huge for me because of the production. Being responsible for such a big production, that was something I always wanted to do. And I'm looking forward to getting back out there with it, because then I can get more into the physicality of it, like really dancing and be Tina, Yeah, I think it's the Tina show, like diving more into that kind of production and kind of performance. Yeah, because she was everything. She sang, like I said, at a 10 and danced at a 10, and I mean, that's like the ultimate. I grew up listening to Tina, Tom Jones, and, all of those great musicals and all that kind of entertainment growing up was huge for me and totally an influence on me. So I want to be that person.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait until you reopen. I will be front row.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining me, Max.
Thank you so much,
It's been such a pleasure to get acquainted with you.
This was fun talking to you.
Yeah, you must come back, and you must come back again. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being you and for sharing your memories and thoughts about Tina Turner. And all of you out there in Radio Land, stick around. We have a couple of more friends coming up.
Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. Our next guest is a writer, photographer, celebrity interviewer, music critic. His work has been featured in Washington Post, Entertainment Weekly, Vibe, and Spin. And he's also authored a number of books, including the biography Luther, The Life and Longing of Luther Vandross, his own memoir, and a novel, and he has a forthcoming book about Janet Jackson coming out. So I'm so happy to welcome him to right here to Showtime. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Craig Seymour. Welcome, Craig. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So I was like on your Twitter last week, and the day that Tina Turner passed, you posted so many amazing nuggets and videos and forwarded other things. I want to talk a lot about just kind of like what Tina Turner meant to you, how she interacted with, how she came in and out of your life. But the first thing I want to talk about is one thing that you forwarded that I had no idea about. Tina Turner shot Randy Jackson.
Apparently his girlfriend was staying with Tina at one particular time, and I guess he was trying to run up in there late or something, and she wasn't having it, and a gun was involved, and there you go.
I love it. I love it. In your time in your career, did you have the opportunity to profile Tina Turner?
I never did. The thing about it is, like she's considered to be a huge superstar here and everything like that. And that's just without a doubt. But I think a lot of people don't even realize how huge she is in Europe. And so, very shortly after she had her biggest solo success with Private Dancer, she kind of hopped over to Europe. And in fact, she recorded much of that album in Europe, but she kind of went over there. And so she never really did much press in the US throughout the time that I was really in the game. And she, she was kind of so successful that she didn't really need the press in a lot of ways.
Like she showed up. If she showed up, people paid attention. She didn't have to court.
Kind of prefiguring the social media world. I mean, she really tried to take charge of her own narrative, which is why she wrote her autobiography, I, Tina, and she did the movie. It's like she really wanted to be the one that was in control of it. And then if people had questions, she can just go, oh, look at the movie. Oh, read the book. She didn't have to constantly rehash that. So I think it's really interesting to look at her career that way, especially in terms of how things have changed in terms of celebrity culture.
Yeah, but that's interesting. So she never really did the crazy junkets and like kind of like went from sofa to sofa rehashing the same tales. That's really, I never thought about it that way. That's really fascinating.
Well, I think what it was is that she did so much of that stuff when she was with Ike. And then when she, in the kind of hiatus between leaving Ike and having some solo success, I mean, she basically did every TV talk show from Hollywood Squares to like the Brady Bunch variety show to Cher variety show. I mean, she did so much of that kind of like retail entertaining, so to speak, that I think by the time she got her own success and was able to detach herself from that, I think she was like, look, I'm out. I've done this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially because by the time she went solo, I mean, she wasn't a spring. It wasn't like she was 21 with a hit record. She had been doing everything for so long, and she was starting to get older. And so I know for myself that many times it's like, yeah, you know what? I'd rather be in bed. Sorry. So I totally get that.
And I think with that perspective and that the time in the industry, she also knew enough in order to be strategic. I mean, a lot of new artists work themselves to death because they don't really know anything about the business and they don't really know which things are more important than other things. But I think by the time she was getting that huge solo success, she really knew what she wanted and what she didn't out of her career and her life.
Totally. And she had really great management.
Yes, Roger Davies, yeah.
Really great management, made some really smart decisions. It's really so funny because, a lot of times people don't really understand what managers do, right? Versus like an agent. But it's always really interesting when you look at certain people's career paths, particularly people who like their career either soars like Tina's did, or maybe would look like it was about to soar and then veers left, like many people who I won't name here. And I find that you can really really see who has good management or not, or who's, oh, you're clearly managed by your mother, or you're clearly, you know what I mean? Like it's really interesting. And I wish I knew. I don't remember how she connected with Roger Davies, but he was like totally the right person for her at that particular moment in time.
Well, funny you should ask, but she was related to what we were talking about in terms of doing all of the 70s variety show stuff. She had done a special with Olivia Newton-John, who was a big pop singer in the 70s and 80s. And
rest her soul. We just lost her this year too.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. And Roger Davies was her manager, and they kind of connected that way. And then when she wanted to sort of take her career from being a Vegas act to becoming a current recording artist, she reached out to him, and then they developed a relationship. And, one thing that I think is really key, both about her story and about their managing relationship, is that he had the vision to go after Private Dancer, when her singles weren't getting picked up by American pop radio that much, he had the vision to just completely pivot and just go, okay, we only care about Europe. And if every now and then US pop radio picks up on a tracker, that's fine. But we're focusing on Europe because this is where the money is and this is where financial stability is. And that was a decision that most, I think, US managers would not have made, because there's so much involved in ego and stuff of, oh, we want to make it big over in the States.
In America, right. It's very America focused. Yeah.
And you can grind yourself down doing that when you can get a huge paycheck in Europe. So
touring stadiums.
Thank you. That part. Instead of little clubs, instead of doing a city winery tour, you know what I mean?
Exactly. What do you think it was that because Private Dancer was huge, right? Like, and I just remember, like, I was a kid when it came out, but I just remember it just being everywhere. I still remember the album cover. I remember the video being played ad nauseum VH1. What do you think it was that later that what do you think it was that the American audience didn't connect with on her later albums?
Well, I think, first, I mean, looking through her career, she had always had a lot of success in Europe. Her song River Deep, Mountain High, that they thought that was going to be a huge hit, and that ended up being a hit in Europe, but flopping here. So there was that kind of precedent to begin with. But, Tina Turner, the Private Dancer album emerged 1984, like in this time of the blockbuster album, whereas certain artists had radio on lock, they were on MTV, and just because that was so novel at the time, these artists were just amplified like nobody's business. So we have like Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, Tina Turner, Private Dancer, Madonna, Like a Virgin, Michael Jackson, Thriller, like all of these albums were right at the same time. And it was kind of a new form of stardom since it was so linked to MTV and the visuals and everything like that. But you also had the weird dynamic of during that time, you had like middle-aged people singing songs that teenagers were dancing to at their proms and stuff. And so there was kind of a growing disconnect between the youth that's just a normal part of pop audience and these artists like Phil Collins and Tina Turner and all these people that are
like really middle-aged people, like, yeah.
Yes. So by the end of the 80s, you kind of have and especially in the 90s, you kind of have a reconfiguring of that whole age thing, and music starts to pop radio gets a lot younger by embracing a lot of the R&B groups, the young R&B groups that were coming out at the time. So in other words, there are always trends in pop radio, and very shortly after Private Dancer, just the trend became toward like younger artists, more R&B oriented artists, and then a lot of the pop blockbuster stars of the 80s, like Tina Turner and Lionel Richie and people like that, they were just kind of irrelevant overnight, in terms of what pop radio wanted.
Totally. That's so interesting. They always say luck is preparation meets opportunity. It's just so fascinating, like that particular moment of time in the 80s. Like that couldn't be replicated because, like you said, just like with the advent of MTV, with the fact that there weren't so many different options in terms of where to stream or get your content. That was a very, like, I guess that level of success I don't think could have happened in any other moment.
No, it was just a consolidation of a bunch of things and people being so just wowed by being able to watch all these videos of the songs, and then it's kind of that snowball effect where it becomes successful and then the success becomes its own story. So then they're covering, so then Time and Newsweek are doing cover stories of, oh, this is so successful, and these things just really blew up because it became one of those things where you felt like you couldn't even have a cocktail party conversation without being able to speak about Thriller or Private Dancer or Born in the USA. So these things just became huge social phenomenons.
Yeah. Yowzer. Did you ever see Tina Turner in concert?
I never did, but because she did one, I can only really think of one, maybe two US tours that she did, that I was aware of and possibly could have gone to or something like that. I mean, she did. I know the farewell tour that was in 2009, and I know the Break Every Rule tour came here, but it's the Wildest Dreams too. But I mean, my point is just that most of her tours, I'm like making myself look bad. Most of her tours were really like Europe focused and everything like that. So it just was, I wasn't. But the interesting thing is everybody I think turned to something different during the pandemic for comfort. And for some reason during the pandemic, I ordered every single Tina Turner concert on Blu-ray or DVD and whatever. And I would just literally sat there and watched concert after concert for hours throughout the pandemic. And that was one of the things that made me feel better. So go figure. So I've never seen her live, seen a lot of videos.
What prompted that? Was it like a thing of you just woke up and thought, I'm in the mood for some Tina Turner, and then just went to Amazon, or what happened
Basically, because, at the time, and also it was kind of like Amazon was also a lifeline, because that was the only place, stores were closed and they could get delivered. So yeah, it was one of those just rabbit hole. It probably started on a whim. And I've always been a huge Tina Turner fan, and always had so it wasn't like, I think I probably just started watching them. I was like, oh, what? She did a concert in Rio, and whatchamacallit, that's on DVD. Well, oh, well, she did this, so it was kind of just a multiplying thing. And I would just sit there for hours and hours just watching different
watching
shows.
her live. Do you have a favorite?
Well, there's one of her DVDs, and I can't remember exactly the title of it, but it's a compilation of live songs, but from different concerts. So it's kind of like the best version of her doing We Don't Need Another Hero or this and that. So I think I like that one a lot. But honestly, I just watched them so much that they're almost all a blur.
Well, because her shows didn't really change that much, compared to if you think of someone like a Madonna, who's very theatrical. And so there's a big theme, and there's all these costumes and such. I feel like she just put on a rock show, and she just kind of came out and sang her tunes. She might rearrange some, some of the song order, but I think overall, her show itself didn't really change.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, in the sort of late 80s, concerts themselves really changed, so that the kind of show you would see in a club was radically different from what you would see in a theater, because people like Madonna with Blonde Ambition and Janet Jackson with the Janet Tour, they were making these real theatrical showpieces with props and themes. And Tina Turner never did that. She just did the whole Euro Stadium, looking back to the people like Freddie Mercury and stuff. I'm just thinking, there's certain artists that we are used to seeing standing in front of huge European stadiums, making people go crazy.
Totally.
And he's one of them, and Tina is another one where she just really locked into that aesthetic of European rock stadium culture, and just did it better than almost anybody that's ever done it. So yeah.
Yeah, she's really interesting. One of the things is, as I've been listening, because this is past, week, is just everything has been Tina on television, on the news, hearing songs oh my God, I totally forgot about that tune. And one of the things that I think about is so unique about her is that she's so singular in terms of just not only her style, but her look. She looks very unique, and her voice is very unique. Is there anybody, just in you as a music critic, as a music historian, as someone who writes about music and who listens to a lot of music, is there anybody you would maybe compare her to in terms of being so singular?
No, I think what you say is just very, very profound. I mean, because I was thinking about this when somebody posted on Twitter or something shortly after she passed, who's going to be singing at the BET tribute, and it was so hard to think of somebody that really has that kind of that kind of voice. But then what we have with these icons is we also have this kind of history that can't be replicated.
Right.
It's we have, what you hear in Tina's voice is a little girl working in the cotton fields of Tennessee, and hearing B.B. King on the radio and singing gospel in a little small church. You know what I mean? That's experience of growing up in the segregated South. So I just feel like we sometimes have to let our historical figures represent their time, and not always try to look for who's going to be the next in that. It's fine to say who's going to be the next kind of in that tradition, but I think so often we're so inclined to look for this person's the next Aretha Franklin, this person's next Shaka Khan, this person's next this and that we don't spend enough time really appreciating the historical specificity of that particular artist.
Oh yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Well, no, that makes perfect sense. Because when you kind of got deep when you talked about because everyone is the product of their life, right? And that's when you were born, what circumstances you were raised in, the community you were raised in, the hardships. So I didn't even think about it that deeply, but yeah, no, I think that's profound. So I think that's really, so in other words, no, there will never be another Tina Turner.
Well, if you think about it though, right? I mean, first, I think people, it's what they create in terms of what they do and how they present themselves and everything, but you really can't detach history from a person's story. Because if you think about it, it's like Tina Turner has like a quintessential civil rights movement narrative. I mean, she started in the cotton fields of Tennessee, with nothing and everything like that. She had an opportunity and she sort of worked hard to recreate herself and sort of proved that you don't have to be defined by your past and you really can achieve your dreams. But at the same time, I think what Tina also represents is like, wow, look how much harder Black folks have to work just to get basic recognition.
Totally.
White people. So it's kind of like, it's those two things, you see both the possibilities, but you also kind of have to reckon with the history.
Totally. But in talking about that, I also kind of wonder, we all claim her, but I wonder, like, I remember going to her that farewell tour. Now, granted, I was seeing it in Long Island, but like, I was like one of like 3 Black people in the audience. And I wonder really how big her Black demographic is, because you talk about like the civil rights and all of that. But in the end, she sung rock and roll, which, by the 70s was not considered Black music. And so I've always kind of wondered how much of that played into like kind of the modern day racism around that, like Black people not listening to white people music and maybe white people not, kind of like what happened to Darius Rucker when he started doing his country stuff. Like, I wonder if that played a part in her European adventure. And like, there was almost a little bit of like a modern day Josephine Baker-esque kind of a thing going on.
Well, I can only, in terms of this, I mean, it's so hard to quantify. I can only speak of my experiences, you know what I mean? And like growing up, and I grew up in DC, Black DC in the 70s, so Tina Turner was always somebody that was kind of embraced and seen as like an icon and seen as a beloved figure, even if people didn't necessarily go out and buy her records and listen to her music. Do you know what I mean?
Got it.
That was kind of the vibe during the 70s, where there were always a lot of celebrities who kind of read as like a little bit too white identified. And like, you would hear like elders kind of like make little cracks about them and stuff like that. It was never that with Tina Turner. It was just kind of like, oh, I love watching her on TV. I love what she represents. I'm not really trying to hear all that hollering in my car, but but it is what it is. And I think, in the 80s, it was always the kind of thing that, well, the Private Dancer album definitely has a lot of R&B textures in it and things like that. But it was, her relationship to music that Black people actually play, like in their house or want to listen to on the radio, that was sort of always variable. But in terms of being a beloved figure, I think you can see like how popular the What's Love got to do with it movie was, and just things like that. I think her story and is really embraced by a lot of African Americans. So I don't think she's not one of those figures where it's kind of like, oh, she did this and that, or I don't know who she's associated with. I think wisely, she always kind of kept out of a lot of like political things and everything.
Right.
So she's not problematic, I don't think.
Right. That makes sense.
Of course, somebody listening to this is going to go, but what about?
You're like, what about this?
Are you advocating for blah, blah, blah? Like, child, to my knowledge, she's not problematic.
There you go.
Let me add that caveat. Okay. Because people will jump all in your mentions.
Which is your favorite of the albums? Have you listened to all of them? Yes.
Oh, yes, definitely. I think. Well, I just think in terms of the trilogy, I mean, Private Dancer, Break Every Rule, Foreign Affair, I love all those albums. So, it would be hard to pick between, and I would just say in terms of just heart, I mean, I just love the Foreign Affair album. But I would say that, but I'm always one of those people that's always like, if everybody likes this album, it's not like I don't like that album, but I'm like, hey, listen to this too, you know? So part of that's just me.
Completely. So I want to pivot now. I am so happy to have our next guest back. She's a friend of mine. She's a friend of our show. In fact, I think she was like our third or fourth guest many, many years ago when we launched.
It's not many, just one many. A few years ago. Don't do it. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, HRH Princess Diandra, welcome back.
Sorry if I stepped on your introduction, but I was taken aback with that many. Like, geez, a few years does not constitute many.
Well, you know what though? That was pre-COVID, and like the shutdown, right? Really, like I have no concept of time. Like that whole period between 20.
I agree with you, but it was only a couple of years, not many.
You're like, yeah, but no. So I'm so glad you joined us. I wanted to chat with you. As you know, we're talking all things Tina Turner today, and I know that you have your holy trinity of Diana Ross, Patti LaBelle, and Tina Turner. So talk to me about, I've been seeing some of your posts on Instagram. Talk to me about just your love of Tina Turner.
I've begun to think about these women and how they've been so instrumental in the navigation of my life, and particularly my life as a drag performer, because I have embodied the essence, and I've done these women, and they've taken me across continents, across borders, in film, television, and anything that I owe to my art as a drag performer is based on Diana, Tina, and Patti, and they just juxtaposition for hierarchy at any given moment. But Tina kind of wins in my adulthood. Tina kind of wins out because Tina is just a force of nature and is just completely unstoppable. And she doesn't have any negative vibe. You know, there's no divitude, there's no shade that we know of.
That we know. You're right. She's never been caught like saying something kind of crusty.
Just never. And I do remember though the time when I met her at the MTV Awards. You could see it online. I recently saw it on YouTube. She was very non-responsive, but I was like fanning out. It was like she had a shield up, like just nothing is penetrable. But it's okay. She lived so much. You cannot fault that woman for anything. Like the mere fact that she survived all of that BS with Ike, it's like tens across Tina from now until eternity.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite like album of hers, or a particular favorite
well, of
number?
Course, it's Private Dancer. I mean, that's the one we all. But when as a kid, like I love like all of her covers. I love her Stone covers. I kind of love mostly anything she does, actually. But I was playing the other day, the day that she died, when I was like, after I stopped crying, I played Love Thing for about 5 times in a row, going, damn, I always like this song. So I don't know. It's hard. You know, she has such an amazing body of work, and her catalog is incredible. It's very hard to just say, I like that one.
Yeah.
But I can tell you ones that I don't like, but no, we're gonna keep it positive.
Well, no, let's go there. We don't have to do that in a shady way, right? We can analyze this as
like
music critics.
Male. I don't like Steamy Windows.
So you don't like that whole album, right?
I don't like a couple of those albums. Like the albums after the initial breakthrough, up until the film, to me are all slight throwaway, because I never find myself listening to any of those albums.
Yeah. Well, I guess like if you think of them like in terms of like there aren't well, no, I said just in terms of like just a structured song, like they're all kind of just like these kind of like mid-tempo rock songs without necessarily I understand what you mean. I understand what
Like,
you
I
mean.
was waiting for the next breakout song, and I was like, eh. And then I think perhaps I stepped back, and I was very, very into Patti LaBelle during this period. And then the movie came out, and
you had to put Patti back on the shelf.
Well, Patty's never been on the shelf because Patti just always delivers in a way that sets her apart from the other two. And Tina came back out, and I don't think I've ever put her back. And then when she did the that big tour in the later 90s.
That's the 24/7 tour, or was that the Wildest Dreams?
The one before,
tour?
right? The one right before that one.
The Wildest Dreams.
Wildest Dreams. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The Wildest Dreams turned it for me. And then the video came out. I think I watched that video like every day. And by the time of 24/7, I was friends with the designer of Body Worship, Andy of Body Worship, who made the black patent leather number. He made one for me for Wigstock that year.
Oh my God.
And gave me a pair of her shoes.
Wow.
And the shoes were too big.
Look at shading Tina Turner.
No, her feet were bigger than mine. I'm a dainty size 8, and she was a 9. But that whole experience just took me to I worshipped that costume. I stopped wearing it, and I was moving, and I went to pack my drag, and it had disintegrated. I was crushed.
No.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
It was made
what was
of
it made
vinyl. It was vinyl, and I don't know if you're supposed to have it treated or store it in a particular way, but it literally was dust and sand. It had disintegrated.
Well, that's I think that kind of makes it even more special. Like it was
I always wanted to have that. Well, I kept the hardware because it had like a chain belt, and it had a lot of studs and things on it. I kept those, and I still have the shoes.
And you have the memory. Isn't it nice?
So
some things are
many memories. Like even before I was a Rabbit Tina fan, as a kid, me and my sister used to have dance contests for a change. We were children, and it was the 70s, early. And we would have dance contests, and she would do James Brown, and I would do Tina Turner. How telling was that? She's not a lesbian or anything, but she was quite the tomboy when we were children. And we, the adults, would just marvel at us doing these people. And I could do it for hours. She would win sometime, I would win sometime, but I always did Tina. I didn't do Diana because Diana was not as much of a showstopper as Tina. No shade, Miss Ross, but come on.
No, she's more of like I stand there and I sing and
pose and I look pretty in my dresses.
Dress. Yeah,
Whereas
totally.
Tina just annihilates the stage. Like, she's incredible.
Well, it's a really interesting. I went to her last tour, and I couldn't get over just how literally she never stops moving. Never stops moving. There's never
this is gonna sound shady, but it's not. It's just honest. When she was promoting the last tour, some of the things that I saw, she was struggling a little.
Well,
and I was thinking, I don't want to go to see this show, and it was so bloody expensive. I don't want to go see this show and watch you struggle. I want to remember you, you in your glory. You are amazing, and I want to keep my memories. I don't want those memories tainted. So I didn't go, and something that I kicked myself every time, because I was working at Lucky Chang's at the time. And a whole crowd of people showed up directly from the show. And I was like, how was she? And when they described it, I literally shed a tear. I missed it. I missed it. You effing. I didn't curse. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. You effing fool. Why didn't you go? And then, because it's really hard to go see your idol when they're not at the top of their game.
Well,
without saying any of my idols' names, one of them isn't quite the diva she was, and God bless her. but she'll never get another shekel out of me. So my memories are very well intact, and I'm not just gonna see you just.
This is one of the people. This is one
One of
person
the
who's on one of the trilogies.
One of the ones from the triad, and it's not.
Oh
Patty
no! Oh no!
The first time I saw Tina live was at the Ritz, and I was right at the foot of the stage. Her sweat was falling on me. I mean, I'm watching this woman just annihilate this damn stage, and my mouth is agape. Like, she started with this big teased hair. They hadn't perfected, the big do that we all knew from the 80s. And it kind of was big, and by the third song, it was flat to her head, the whole hair. But the sweat was falling on me, and then the dancing and the growling and the look and I was just like, God damn, look at this woman. And then she said, now I want to do a song. I recorded this song. Hope you like it. Let me say it. And I'm thinking, oh, that's so sweet. Nobody's going to buy that. Boy, was I wrong. And I am glad that I was wrong, because, yes, I was wrong. She turned it. Tina turned it.
Oh my God.
And of course, we all know the rest is history. She did the song, she did the album, and kaboom. She got the homage she deserved for all those years of being in the shadow of all those subpar bitches. Like, when you look at the trajectory of her career, and I look at everyone that was popular in, say, the early 60s, the late 60s, the early 70s, disco, she was always in the back burner. And that I used to always watch her come on shows going, I don't understand. Why is she? Donna Summer can't dance. Diana Ross is no dancer. Like, the only dancing girls were like Lola Falana and Tina, but they weren't nearly as popular as any number of other of our black girl singers. So anyway, she was just slowly waiting in that rear. Then she steamrolled all those hoes in the 80s. And I was very happy to watch her trajectory, because it was well-deserved. It was just so well-deserved. So she got that affected accent. So what? Let her do whatever she wants. She earned it.
Exactly.
Like, that woman could do no wrong. I could never hear a person say a disparaging thing about that incredible force of nature. I guess you could tell I love that bitch.
But no, she's. No, I'm just saying, you're right, though. No one says anything negative about her.
Yeah, but I cried like a baby when, I heard she died. Like, it was very weird. Like, it kept coming in waves. And then finally I saw the interview where she said she was ready, like, years ago, like, I'm ready to go. Like, I've done what I'm like, well, then I shouldn't be sad if she doesn't want to be here. I don't know how much she suffered. I don't know what pain she was in. But well done, Tina. Rest.
Totally. And what's amazing, and this is what I think is really fascinating, and I was just talking to my friend Craig, who joined us a little earlier, and he pointed out that, during her, her big solo time when she was shining during Private Dancer, she really controlled her own narrative. Craig's a music critic, and so, he was talking about how she didn't do a lot of sit-downs interviews. It's like, this is my book, that's my story, we can refer to the book. This is the movie. And I think, and it's interesting that she kind of did that up until the end, because if you really look at it, she closed her life before she died with the coming to the United States to open up Tina on Broadway. And I remember, like, in the documentary, she was like, this is my farewell to America. Then she did that documentary that was like, this sums up everything. And then it's like, her last interview, I want to be remembered as the queen of rock and roll. Boom. Like, it's like, you couldn't write that. It was like, okay, let me literally put my affairs in order.
Well, I read a book recently by a former employee, and they create this narrative that slightly can be a little untrue. And even though the little digs that this queen was taking at her, I still love the way she was in control of her own story. And this is how I'm gonna be perceived. And I don't think she had an evil bone in her body. And we all have moments of bitchiness. And if I had been beat the shit out of for 20, excuse me, if I had been beat like that for 20 years, I would have some kind of choice words for a lot of things and a lot of people. Like I would have I would have zero tolerance for a lot of BS. So
totally.
I could forgive her some of the little incidences he talked about, but yeah, she had a slight shady side, but she could do no wrong.
Again, it's probably tired. Like because it's so funny. We're talking about it in the context of like when she was born. She was born in the 30s in segregated South. She's a Black woman who came of age in like the 50s. You know, like at some point I might be a little. I mean, I guess my point is like I can see getting to a point where it's like I'm not taking any BS. So here's what, this is your job, do it. You know, like I can totally see that. What was, give me an example?
I was like, I got my ass beat for a decade plus. So shut it down. Back in the bus.
Totally.
That BS.
Do you remember an example of some of like what the guy was saying? Like was it just like rude comments?
She had a way of cutting people off. Like if she was angry at you, you were just chopped unceremoniously. I have no time. Like hit the road. And sometimes it sounded a little hard, kind of cold-blooded the way, the chopping happened. And he got chopped because he didn't get along with the husband. And as you saw it building, my whole thought was, sissy, you need to redirect the way you act with her. You hear him coming down the stairs, start giggling and laughing with her. Like whenever he's in the room, just shut up. Because my relationship to her would have been so important that I knew she wasn't going to chop me for her husband.
Totally.
So he needed to reevaluate how he interacted with Tina in front of the husband, because the husband like kind of looked at him like, ugh, just in disgust, like every time he entered the room.
Oh, that's so fascinating. What do you think the husband?
I would have made it a point to stand clear of that in this thing.
Well, what do you?
I'm coming, gotta go.
Well, what do you think it is, right? Like the husband didn't just not like him off the bat.
The husband could have been a homophobe. One.
Okay.
It was a big old screaming queen. The husband could have been a homophobe. The husband could have been maybe racist. The husband could have also not liked the way Tina acted when she was in the presence of this queen, because I'm sure Tina let her hair all the way down, and that husband probably saw a side of her that he was like, "What's that?"
It's like, that's Tennessee.
What's going on over there? And so I'm sure she, was all spit, shined, and polished, like in his presence. And the queen made a point to say that she literally bent over backwards for him in a way that he had never seen her do. And he had known her since he was a child. He came into her life as a groupie, like trying to follow her around as a child. He became an adult, eventually worked with her. And yeah.
And then wrote a tell-all.
Well, I mean, he took a long time to write that tell-all, because if it was a bitch like me and you chopped me and there was no more interaction, not only would I have written the book a lot earlier, I would have embellished some of those stories. Like, you chopped me, girl. This is what you get. Oh.
Oh my God.
Because I guess when you work with a person, you kind of see them warts and all.
Totally.
And that haze, it shifts, it separates, and you see clearly. Like, can you imagine working for Diana Ross?
Can you imagine working for Diana Ross?
Nah, she would have fired me long ago. Because I would have called her every nasty hoe from Detroit. Like, it wouldn't have worked. I would have taken that tongue lashing 2, maybe 3 times, and I would have been like, "Wait a minute,"
because you need at least a couple of instances for the book, right?
Well, I don't think you enter the working relationship with the idea that you're going to write a book. But I mean, incident after incident, I think I might have wrote a few things down. Like, "Ooh, this today was good. I got to write this down."
I imagine it's very difficult to be a celebrity assistant in the sense that, like you say, you are with them all the time and you see them warts and all. And so I imagine it's very, and most people I know, most high net worth, most high net worth people I know and people in the public eye tend to be really like needy and codependent in just how they like approach and interact with people. So I imagine that that's a very hard job because you basically are helping this person live their life, sometimes like actually carrying them through it, but they're still your employee. So finding that balance between like, oh my God, you just told me your deepest, darkest secret about murdering your first boyfriend. But yes, I will go and get those files. You know what I mean? Like we're not friends at the end of the day. Like I imagine that's a really hard balance.
Moments, like he would write about moments and she would just take him on shopping sprees and do little things for him. And they would have like these girlfriend moments. And then she would curse him out like severely, like Tina did that. then you have to realize that these people are human, and it's really hard having a public persona because you're trying to like cultivate an image, but then life happens.
Totally. Well, especially now we know she has.
And sometimes you just need to curse a bitch out. And there's no getting around that. Like there's no mincing words, there's no niceties. It's like, bitch, you did this and I need to check you now. So I get it.
And especially also now, now that we know, like for, the last 40 years, she's had a lot of serious health issues along the way as well. So just adding to the, like, I could see not being fluffy.
Well, anyone that I've ever known to work around Tina is like Andy, who did the dress. They only tell wonderful stories about her. That there's no divitude, there's no reading, there's no yelling, there's no disagreements. That she was very fun, very giving, very chill. And Andy tells the story of her like beating up her wigs backstage before, wearing them. Like they have to really look like they've been put through the ringer. And then he said the chanting, he said they didn't depict it well in the movie because she's yelling and screaming that yam yam rigging kill thing like a nut. Like it starts. It starts like very low and it reaches like this crescendo and you're like, what's going on? And then that's her chanting. That's what she does. Get used to it. God. He's like, it was crazy time, but just crazy time.
That's so funny. I wish I was in the room that time when they were rehearsing. What was it for Divas Live? And she got into like that blowout
with Elton John.
Oh my God! I'm like, I wish someone had footage of like that, their whole back and forth, because I can only imagine how wonderfully epic and amazingly fantastic
and she said,
it was.
Liza, I'm not doing nothing with you. If you're gonna try to pull this on me, I don't need it. I ain't that hungry, sissy. But that would have been an interesting tour. He's not exactly one of my favorites, but it would have been interesting to see them
like do their thing together, because they like, I think they kind of like musically they complement each other. I mean, you know what I mean? Like there's that pop rock kind of. I think musically that would have been interesting. Alas, it never was.
I thought that would have been interesting. What was that?
No, I said, alas, it never was. So do you know more? We were talking about this earlier. Apparently, Tina Turner shot Randy Jackson. Do you know this story?
Yes.
Okay, oh my God. Good. Okay, so perfect.
The Queen told the story. He told the whole story in the book. So I don't remember how the girl came to Tina. Was it a relative of somebody in the band?
I thought that. Well,
it was a daughter of an employee. She was connected somehow. Like she was the daughter of the sister's boy. It was very like a connection, like a close connection, and she came around.
Right.
And if Tina liked you, she had you around. So the
Right.
girl was around.
Where is this at the time? Is this
And it was in California. It was
in California? Okay.
Los Angeles, I believe. And the girl was, I don't know, was she working for Tina? But she was always around the girl. And the girl was going with Randy Jackson. And Randy Jackson was a nut, well, according to this girl. And he was very controlling. And they had an argument and she was avoiding him. And he came storming to where she was staying at Tina. And he tried to break in. And then he climbed in the window.
What?
Tina got that shotgun and was like, no, you will not, N-word. Kaboom, 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 kaboom. And I was like, what? And then I saw an interview on YouTube where this queen who wrote the book, he's actually telling the story. I don't know. For the life of me, I can't remember this guy's name. Gee.
We're going to have to dig that up and repost it on our social, because that's amazing.
He used to make her wigs for her. So when he got fired, he stole a wig, and he's apparently doing interviews in the wig. And he's sitting there in this wig telling this story. But the story is so genius. Like, you can't make this up. Like, you can't make this up. And she shot at Randy Jackson.
That's so amazing. Like that, I would have, if I had done something like that, I would have put out a press release, because that's like so badass.
Well, I'm sure she must have paid a fortune to keep that under wraps, or whoever was around her, because that is news. Can you imagine waking up to that news? Today in the news, rock star Tina Turner shot at Jackson member Randy Jackson as he tried to enter her home uninvited. That would have been so genius.
Oh my God. Well, thank you for coming by again. I always love chatting with you.
Yeah, it's been a while. I can't wait to hear what everyone else has to say, because, you know, Tina was just a force that impacted us all, and like her body of work will live so long into like the next whatever.
No, 100%. 100%.
Because you could just look at her, and you have decades, and from this era and that era and that era and that era. And it's like she just gave it her all, never phoning it in. That is just a remarkable thing to do in 50 years.
Yeah. Oh.
And, you know, many of them should take a page out of her, and just some people should sit down. Like, it's not for you to just keep running around just because you can. And you're like giving a subpar version of what you gave in your heyday. Like, you have to continue to reinvent yourself till it's not cute anymore.
Well, I remember watching an interview with Tina Turner when she was, I think it might have been when she was had that Oprah interview, and it was like after her farewell tour, and she was like, I can't do that anymore. Like, we now know, right? All of her health problems, but she was realistic. She's like, if I were to do something, it would have to be very different, but like no one's coming to see Tina Turner stand there and sing in a dress. So it's probably not going to happen.
Do you remember, like, during her show, she did a moment on a stool where she did like mid-tempo songs. She was on a stool. Like, I would go see 2 hours of her doing that. I thought that was going to be her next move. Like, I didn't imagine she was going to really retire. And I was like, she's gonna do one of those shares. She's gonna come back and do a scaled down version of the thing, and she just didn't. She really retired.
But I don't think that would have worked, just because the whole thing about her.
I think that could have worked.
2 hours of her just sitting.
I enjoyed that segment of the show, and then you can make it longer. She could sit there and tell stories.
So you want her to leave the stadium world and become a cabaret singer?
I mean, it's my own selfishness, because I wanted to see her one last time. And I was really sad that I missed her. I kept kicking myself that you could have seen her and you didn't. And now it's really over.
And now it's really over.
You don't believe when they say they're retiring and they're not coming back. You know, the ego.
Well, we can blame Cher for that one. Hasn't she been retiring for the last 15 years?
But I
never ending tour.
I saw that show twice. And have you seen Cher talk about going and see her recently for the last time?
I did. I read about that.
And she gave Cher a pair of shoes. I want to see the shoes.
And Cher said they were too big. Thank you all
the shoes that I got were too big, and that's not any disrespect. It's just the truth. I have a little pygmy feet for a big old queen like me.
Well, thank you, HRH Princess Diandra. Thank you all for joining us for this wonderful moment honoring legend Tina Turner. We'll see you all next week right here on Hot 702.5 FM with Showtime with Jordan Van Hassel and Friends.